And can't we have a stationary table? Can we have a table that's...
John?
Nobody answers in this business.
Kate Hepburn. Call me Kate. That's all right. Don't be so formal.
This is
a little solider.
Move it out. Move it out.
Just put this out here.
I have a card. I've been in the business so long.
No one ever dreamed of getting Katharine Hepburn on a talk show. I got word to her, and the word came back, I have a quick answer for that. Everyone knew what the answer was.
Yes, that's better. That's all right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Miss Hepburn, because she feared doing it, made herself do it.
If anybody can survive that carpet, whose idea was that?
The minute she steps on a stage, or comes on a screen, or enters the room that you happen to be in, it's as if music plays. Bang!
Cold sober, I find myself absolutely fascinating.
I think it was being born at the right year for my personality. You know, the pants came in, the low heels came in, the terrible woman came in who spoke her mind. I was born absolutely at the right time. That's the story of me. Great timing.
Katharine Hepburn is regarded as the greatest female star in the history of American cinema. Her over 60 years of acting have been applauded on many occasions, and her record-breaking 4 Oscars for Best Leading Actress confirm that she had something special, something that only great stars have. But what is it?
The characters that she helped create were so multi-layered. That's why her career sustained for such a long time, because she could be so funny. She was a great leading woman because she gave her leading men shit. Because she challenged every single leading man that she had.
Don't you want your rub down? You want a drink? Want anything? What?
What a star has to sell is their persona. And Hepburn had the ability to dig in her heels without pissing people off to the extent that they would not hire her again. And, you know, she delivered on screen. She was always interesting, even in films that were not always as good as you might hope they would be.
Miss Hepburn, she's a champ. I mean it. The champion lady golfer. Watch this.
I don't think anybody knows what the so-called it is. You know it when you see it. You see that face, those features, and that burning personality that's coming out of it.
I don't want to be worshipped. I want to be loved.
I was lucky enough to have been born at a time when they wanted this, me, my, whatever it is. I've got it. But, I mean, what is it? I don't think it's talent. I think it's just you've got a good hot motor inside you, and it ticks away, and your eyes shine, and the teeth shine.
Hello, Dexter. Hello, George. Hello, Mike.
Deborah Nadoorman Landis is professor for costume design at UCLA in Los Angeles and an insider in the Hollywood film business. She created the look of Spielberg's Indiana Jones as well as the iconic leather jacket for Michael Jackson's Thriller video.
Is she someone who was ever going to be a flash in the pan? No. She was a star in the 30s, she was a star in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s. She maintained her career, and she transitioned so magnificently through her 60-year career. And the audience just kept wanting to see her and kept showing up to see who she would be next.
Katharine Hepburn's unusual family background has a huge influence on her later life. She experiences a sheltered childhood in New England as the second eldest child of very progressive parents. Together with her 5 brothers and sisters, Katharine enjoys an easygoing and liberal upbringing. The parents encouraged their children to be free of fear and self-confident. But the parents make demands as well. Everything in life must be earned by hard work. Carved into the stone fireplace at Fenwick is the family motto, "Listen to the song of life." Katharine's parents remain a major influence on her whole life. The closeness of the family is embodied by their family home in Fenwick, Old Saybrook. The house remains her lifelong hideaway. Whenever the work allows, here on the coast, she can just be herself.
I was brought up in a big family, and I was brought up great. Just brought up great. I had a fascinating mother, a fascinating father, and a wonderful childhood. I really did. And I have a wonderful family now, and I have my roots in the same place that I was brought up, and I'm extraordinarily lucky, you know, and that's just luck.
In my family, Kate was the hero. She was the one who we all admired and looked up to.
Mundy Hepburn is Katharine's favorite nephew and the son of her younger brother Dick. He grew up in the house in Fenwick with Auntie Katharine. He still lives in Old Saybrook and is an artist who works with glass.
Kate's mother was an orphan and taken care of by rich relatives, and she begged to go to Bryn Mawr. "I want to go to college." And the answer was, "Women don't go to college. Good God, go marry someone rich." And she thought, forget it, not a chance. So there was a sort of original thought on Kate's mother's part, born of suffering. Think it out for yourself, figure out what's real for yourself. Catherine Martha Houghton saw a man diving into a swimming pool and said, "I'm going to marry him." And that man was Tom Hepburn. They married. Went to Hartford. He, being a urologist, started a practice. And being a urologist, he got the venereal disease cases from the hospital. And the rich society women would come in, "Doctor, there's something wrong with me, and I can't imagine what's wrong." "Madam, you have gonorrhea." I do not." "Madam, you have gonorrhea." And a bunch of these ladies would come in, and it was learned after a while that their husbands were visiting the local whorehouse and catching gonorrhea from the whores and bringing it home to their lovely wives. And my grandmother, learning this from her husband, was enraged. Now, this was around the time of women's rights and suffragettes and all that stuff. She got a soapbox. My father told me this. She went to Elizabeth Park and said, "Do you realize what's going on in your town?" and talked, and people, shut up, and they threw things at her. And she would come home with a dirty dress and go out in a few days and do it again. And finally it was like, oh, those terrible, horrible Hepburns. Don't go near them. They're, spreading rumors and gossip. Oh, how could they? And finally, she did it for long enough where people would be like, what did she say? For real? Ooh. The whorehouse was closed. The ladies stopped getting gonorrhea. And they became absolutely reviled in their community. And she helped get the woman's vote. And she stood up for human rights, that is, women's rights, children's rights, and what is right, not what is correct, not what's politically correct or proper, but what is actually good for human society. And so Kate grew up during this time and thought, my God, these people are crazy, but I like it.
Would you consider yourself a feminist?
Yes, I'm an absolute feminist.
You were quite a tomboy as a young girl, weren't you? You were called Jimmy.
I was called Jimmy, and I hated being a girl. I really hated it. I just shaved my head and thought, I'm a boy.
What did your parents think of this?
They thought it was great. They didn't have to brush my hair or wash it.
In 1921, the family harmony is crushed by an unexpected tragedy. It casts a dark shadow over Katharine and haunts her for the rest of her life. Kathy and Tom decide to visit an aunt in New York. There's no sign of anything wrong. Tom tells his aunt that the trip is one of the best experiences he's ever had. They go to the theater, and the following morning Katharine discovers her brother hanging from the attic ceiling. Dr. Hepburn tries to talk himself and the newspapers into thinking it's just an accident, simply a foolish prank. The family never speaks about the loss of Tom again. The past is the past. Kathy becomes moody after Tom's death, and her parents take her out of school. She's given private lessons which are perfect for Katharine. One of the few other things that really lift her spirits is acting in backyard productions. Thanks to intensive private teaching, Katharine is able to enroll at college at 17. Like her mother, she attends Bryn Mawr, an elite women's college near Philadelphia. Monday, September 29th, 1924, is her first day. Kate, as she now calls herself, makes an extraordinary first impression at the college. The first evening she enters the dining hall, trying to conceal her terror of the other girls. The tables of students fall silent, all are staring at her. Suddenly her voice quips, "Ah, self-conscious beauty." Everyone laughs. Kate runs out. "I nearly dropped dead," she writes in her autobiography. She avoids the dining room for a month and always goes to bed early to study. Her time at Bryn Mawr is very formative for Kate, but not only in an academic sense. In her second year, Kate becomes more confident and joins the theatre group to act in The Truth About Blades, where she plays the leading man in wig and trousers. Kate starts amusing herself outside of college. One of her first flirts is Ludlow Ogden Smith, nicknamed Luddy. Kate poses in front of his camera, sometimes nude, but that's all there was to it, she soberly writes later about her future husband Luddy. Katharine Hepburn finally graduated in history and philosophy at Bryn Mawr in 1928. Her acting at Bryn Mawr is crowned by her role as Pandora in the college's grand May Day celebration in 1928. Whoever filmed the parade that day managed to capture Katharine Hepburn's acting for the very first time on celluloid. All Kate's father could see that day are the soles of her dirty feet getting blacker and blacker, and her freckled face getting redder and redder. Dr. Hepburn remained skeptical about the whole acting business. For him, the profession is just one step away from walking the streets. But Kate has already made up her mind. Sparked by the applause of the audiences at Bryn Mawr, she knows she has to become an actress.
He just thought if you go into the theater for a woman, it was a profession for her that would last about 5 years. Mine's lasted 52 so far, so I'm okay. Daddy was wrong.
Kate stays loyal to the school her entire life. And in 2006, the Katharine Hepburn Center is founded to honor Katharine and her mother. And then everything happens very quickly. Katharine lands a job on Broadway, but instead of acting, Kate is acting up. Her voice rises too high and she speaks too quickly. Hepburn is bad. Hepburn is awkward. She needs a lot of practice.
I never studied acting.
Never?
Well, I studied with quite a number of people. I studied with Francis Robinson Duff in New York. I studied voice, and you used to blow a candle out. So you'd have and feel her diaphragm go in. I never understood a word of it. I'd blow, and I was so excited, I'd blow from here, and I'd lose my voice every time I played, because I was petrified.
Theatre producers notice very quickly that she has a powerful presence, a different look and sound, all the makings of a star. She embodies the spirit of the time.
I got fired, but then sometimes I'd get taken back, and sometimes I'd get good reviews, and sometimes, not terribly interesting, I think I irritated people. Maybe I still do.
Since college, Luddy is at Kate's side and follows her to New York to become a stockbroker. Luddy is a sensitive, loyal, and good-natured friend. After the first flops on Broadway, he seizes the opportunity. Kate and Luddy shock the theatre company with the sudden news that Kate is giving up her career to marry him. Their marriage lasts 6 years. They move into a modest house in Turtle Bay Gardens, New York, in 1933. It becomes Katharine Hepburn's home for more than 60 years and one of the stable pillars which Katharine's life and career rests on. However, the enthusiasm about being a married lady only lasts a few weeks. Kate returns to the theatre. She makes Luddy change his name because she does not want to be called Mrs. Smith. She says later, "I wasn't fit to be married because I only thought about myself." Kate works hard on herself and is not discouraged by constantly being fired. Then, in 1932, she is suddenly cast in The Warrior's Husband. Kate plays the Amazon Antiope, the perfect role for her. She has the Art Deco look. Her angular beauty reflects the ideal of art and design of the time, progressive and futuristic. The audience goes wild, so does Hollywood. She is offered a screen test for RKO Studios and invests her entire dramatic energy into it. Kate knows she wants success. Katharine quickly learns her role within the Hollywood movie-making system and turns it to her own advantage. Her very first film, A Bill of Divorcement, is a box office hit.
Don't. You see, you can't stand even the first glimpse of the truth. Darling, it would be dangerous for me to marry.
Author Robert S. Burchard is an award-winning film and video editor and noted film historian at the American Film Institute in Los Angeles.
Katharine Hepburn came to films in the early 1930s just as sound was fully taking hold. And in the silent era, the stars had been very visually iconic. And there was a carryover with that visual appeal in the early 30s. Many of the stars have that same kind of glamour aspect to them. But sound added another dimension, and some of the stars that had been very popular in the silent era didn't maintain that popularity in the sound era because, not because they were bad actors or any lesser than they had been earlier, but their voices didn't project that same kind of iconic aspect that their visual personas had. Katharine Hepburn was one of those actors in the early 30s who, like a Jimmy Cagney or a Mae West, who had a vocal quality that matched her screen image and projected that a total persona for audiences.
The 1920s and 30s are times driven by style and attitude. Anything fresh, fast, and rebellious is intriguing. Hollywood's success is based on the creation of dreams reflecting the glitter of the times and a small circle of divas. Katharine Hepburn's silver screen charisma, however, promises something very unique.
Girl from the wrong side of the tracks find happiness with a man from the right side?
If you want our summer evenings to be over, you'll have to drive me away yourself.
No one else could.
No one.
Well, I won't.
See for yourself with Academy Award winner Katharine Hepburn.
She has the tough, fragile about her. She was absolutely beautiful, but was she a sex object? I don't think so. There were 3 women in the golden age of Hollywood who were really known for wearing trousers in their own lives. Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich. Can I just say, the great Greta Garbo, the great Marlene Dietrich, and the great Katharine Hepburn. And each of these women were able to transform on screen into goddesses, glamorous goddesses.
It's lucky for me you're not the sort of girl that likes to make a man play the fool.
Perhaps I played the fool myself in choosing to live such a lonely life.
RKO signed the actress to a long-term contract. The star is now the property of the studio, and many aspects of her life are also under control. The Hollywood publicity machinery gets rolling. A devoted fan's scrapbook, lying untouched for decades in the New York Public Library, reveals the Hollywood star system's strategy in headlines and articles. Studio bosses are trying to mold Katharine into a Garbo-like figure, but Katharine is neither exotic or mysterious.
I think when you have a unique personality, as she did, it's a little unnerving to come across that, for the first time. She was unlike anybody else, and whether she was good or bad in those early roles is not really, it's hard to know, but we know that she was unique, and film audiences had trouble relating to her screen image.
In Hollywood's City of Dreams, business is not only about creating celluloid images, it's about making money. Katharine Hepburn obviously understands this from the very beginning and fearlessly commands an outlandish salary of $1,500 a week. The studio knows she's worth it. She'll bring the money rolling in.
International capital of the motion picture is a fabulously press-agented suburb of Los Angeles, Hollywood, a community whose name alone is a magic word throughout the world.
During the golden age of Hollywood, everything is controlled by 5 major studios. In the 1930s, these homes of movie magic produce hundreds of films a year. They invest enormous sums of money recruiting and grooming talented actors in order to control them with long-term contracts. The star system creates legends in order to create money. Many actors are just small fry in the system, but Katharine knows exactly how the dream-making machinery works. Everyone is curious about Hepburn. Fans, photographers, and newspapers overwhelm her with attention. It is stressed how much she hates publicity. But then she cheekily shows off with a monkey perched on her shoulder. Her private life is kept a secret, but rumors are already circulating about those trousers and her women companions. At a time when marriage and motherhood are seen as the ultimate goals for women, she sees neither as being right for her. One day, Katharine wears dungarees on set. Studio executives think they are much too risque and take them away. Katharine simply strips off and walks around half naked until they return them. After only 6 months in Hollywood and just 2 films, Katharine Hepburn does something unusual for a woman in Hollywood at the time. She gets involved in the production process. At 26, she reads the script for Morning Glory and thinks, "It must have been written for me." A girl from New England goes to New York to become an actress, has a couple of lovers, and transforms into a star overnight. She wins her first Oscar. Beginner's luck? She's so sure she will not win that she goes to Europe. This is the first of her famous non-appearances at the Academy Awards. In less than a year, she has become more than a Hollywood leading lady. She is now a star.
Your most challenging role, is there one that sticks out in your mind?
I don't think so. I think I played them all the same way, didn't I? That's what they tell me.
You don't believe that, do you?
Yes, I do. I think most people do. Some people are very good character actors. I'm not. It's just that you have to be sure that you're well cast.
If you really want Bessie, please wait until Mommy comes home. But oh God, please.
And perfect casting it is for Katharine in Little Women, and by the autumn of 1933, the film is breaking all box office records. Katharine has a few affairs, but this is not the reason she decides to divorce Luddy. The work of an actress and the life of a housewife are absolutely incompatible. In 1934, they are divorced in Mexico. RKO regard her as one of its most valuable properties. She is being cast in melodramatic parts, but Katharine lacks the feminine appeal of the sweet 1930s girl, and her next 4 films are box office flops. Katharine Hepburn's star seems to have suddenly burnt out. The studio begin to talk about the Hepburn stigma. The financial flops at the box office are increasing. Katharine's downfall seems to be unstoppable. When independent cinema owners issue a list of actors declared as box office poison, Greta Garbo, Marlene Dietrich, and Katharine Hepburn are amongst them. Not only the films are unpopular, problems arise from Hepburn's attitude. She has a difficult relationship with the press, with whom she can be rude and provocative. She refuses interviews and turns down requests for autographs, which earn her the nickname Katharine of Arrogance. She simply refuses to behave like other Hollywood celebrities. It looks as if her movie career, which began so brilliantly just 6 years before, is now over.
My pictures were bores. I mean, Woman Rebels was a bore. Break of Hearts was a bore. Quality Street was a bore. And I sort of smelled it before I made them, but I was on a salary where they had to pay me, and I thought I should do them.
I've never thought that the golden age was a moment in time that was any different than now, that somehow it was more glamorous then, or somehow they had a different point of view. They didn't. All they wanted to do was make money from their films. How do you make money from a movie? You make money from a movie if people love it. Love it. You have to love the movie. How do you love a movie? You love a movie when you're swept away and you forget your life and you're in the film and you have left everything behind and you're on a journey. That's when a movie transcends storytelling and becomes iconography.
Dark clouds are not only gathering over Hollywood. A hurricane sweeps along the coast of Connecticut and completely destroys her beloved family home in Fenwick. A double catastrophe for Katharine. No home, no film career. Typical for hands-on Hepburn, she's determined to rebuild her house to its former glory. Out of the blue, the dramatist Philip Barry arrives at Fenwick to offer Katharine a play he has written especially for her. Each line is tailored to her personality and will set the tone for most of the roles to follow. The independent, outspoken woman, far brighter than the men around her, a perfect vehicle for her return to Broadway. It's called The Philadelphia Story. From 1939, the show ran for more than 400 performances. The critics and audiences were ecstatic. Katharine Hepburn is back.
And I asked her, not on the show, I think, how did you do that fall? You don't put your hand down, you know, it seems like you go straight out of frame, but on your back. And she said, I don't remember that. I said, the scene with Cary, she didn't remember it. Must be wonderful to have made so many films that you can forget being pushed by Cary Grant.
And the night that you got drunk on champagne and climbed out on the roof and stood there naked with your arms out to the moon, wailing like a banshee.
I told you I never had the slightest recollection of doing any such thing.
What in the name of all that's holy am I to do?
Tracy.
Yes, Mike.
Old Parson Parson, he's never seen Kidbridge before, has he? Now look, I got you into this thing, and I'll get you out of it. Will you marry me, Tracy?
Katharine Hepburn steers her own comeback when she buys the film rights to The Philadelphia Story. She then sells it to MGM under the condition that she plays the leading role.
She was the leading man's equal. She couldn't be manipulated. She always had the comeback word. She was a smart cookie. She was a woman's woman. She was smart, and yet she made us care about her. So she wasn't so tough that she couldn't get hurt. She could have her heart broken. In each of her performances, she works on so many different levels, the heart and the head.
Now Katharine Hepburn is playing Hollywood's game by her own rules. At a time when few stars and even fewer women could escape the grip of the studios, she discovers she can even stand up to powerful movie executives and win. Katharine is back in business. Katharine Hepburn wants only the very top stars to play with her, and the top star she really wants to act with is Spencer Tracy. Tracy looks rough and ready, a tough guy, very masculine. Perhaps this is exactly what attracts Katharine to him. Woman of the Year is the first of 9 Tracy Hepburn films and sets the working pattern for the successful duo. When they meet, Katharine is 33 and Spencer 40. It seems like a harmless flirt at first. Spencer is renowned for his affairs with co-stars, and Katharine is divorced. But this is much more than just an affair. Spencer and Katharine remained together for 27 years, until his death. It's a kind of soul relationship, with Tracy leading a double life. He is too Catholic to divorce from his wife Louise, with whom he has 2 children. Spencer suffers with a constant bad conscience, mostly drunk and alone in the Beverly Hills Hotel. In their films together, Tracy plays the dominant masculine man, Hepburn his submissive wife. She embodies this role perfectly, but is fully aware that she is only acting it on screen. And indeed, Spencer Tracy is the only man she ever looks up to.
I think she was fiercely loyal. She was, in 2 words, impossible. I remember Cagney said to me once, he said, you know, none of us could control her. She would come in and break up a card game. I'd be playing with Frank McHugh and Spencer, and Hepburn would come in and she'd just disrupt the whole game, just this. And he said, but Spencer would say to her, Red, sit down and shut up, and she would.
I'm old-fashioned. I like 2 sexes. And what is more, I suddenly don't like being married to what is known as a new woman. I want a wife, not a competitor. Competitor, competitor. If you want to be a big he-woman, go and be one, but not with me.
What attracted me to Spencer Tracy is, what? Magic. He was a witty, amusing, entertaining man with a rather difficult nature. And it was easy for me to please Spencer because I loved him.
Perhaps their relationship functioned so well because they never lived together as husband and wife. But professionally, Katharine remains independent. In their years together, she makes just as many films without him. She even returns to the theatre with Shakespeare.
In 1949, they took the As You Like It tour around the country, and they kept a bucket, a wastebasket, right near stage entry. And Kate would go up and throw up into the bucket, totally nervous, just completely freaked out and afraid, and go on stage anyway. And as my mother said, give a brilliant performance, and then come back and grab my mother by the shoulders. Was I any good? Was I any good? And my mother said, and she meant it. Was I any good? This is how hard she tried. This is how badly she wanted to succeed and do a good job. That's what was interesting about her. She was afraid, she doubted herself, she did it anyway.
Because I hate the feeling of being kind of doing half as well as I can do. Perfection is thrilling.
The thing about her nature that's natural is an enormously centered ego, a very centered drive. So if you're going to do something, do it all the way. Don't do it halfway. Either do it or don't do it. So if you're going to do it, and if you have to throw up, then throw up. But do it.
For a long time, I was too egotistical, I suppose, and too frightened to accept the fact that the audience, after all these years, had given me they'd given me their friendship, their undiluted, just friendship. We like you. You're nice.
By the early 1950s, Katharine Hepburn is at the height of her career. She is an internationally famous dramatic actress with an equal flair for comedy and a rock-solid box office attraction. But she's looking for new challenges, and in 1951 she goes on location to shoot The African Queen with Humphrey Bogart and director John Huston. An authentic experience it is too. Crocodiles in the river, poisonous snakes in the portable toilet, and diarrhea. Katharine later reflects on the shoot in her book, The Making of the African Queen, or How I Went to Africa with Bogart, Bacall, and Huston, and almost lost my mind. Her role as the prudish Rosie Sayer is probably the one most responsible for branding Hepburn's screen image into our cinematic memory.
You promised you'd go down the river.
There's death a dozen times over down the river.
You promised.
Well, I'm taking my promise back.
I never dreamed that any experience could be so stimulating.
I think as she moved into middle age, she was fortunate to have a couple of roles, the so-called spinster roles that also projected strength and individuality. African Queen and Summertime come to mind, where she was not just an irrelevant old biddy who was sitting on the porch rocking in the rocking chair. She was out there trying to get things done. And again, I think this was a matter of self-awareness and of her own persona, I think, in pushing ahead to get what she wanted and what she needed in her life.
At the beginning of the 1960s, Spencer Tracy's health, damaged by a lifetime of heavy drinking, begins to deteriorate so rapidly that he's taken to a clinic.
She certainly took care of him, and it was a nurse-patient relationship a lot of the time, yeah. There's You often run across the thing of someone finding her sleeping outside his hotel room door at, I think, the Beverly Hills Hotel, where he was drunk inside and rolling about. Tortured man. She was good for him, apparently, and saved him any number of times.
In 1967, a time when racial tension is still rife in the USA, the film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner tells the story of a family whose daughter, played by Kate's niece, Katharine Horton, wants to marry her black boyfriend.
John Wade Prentice. Isn't that a lovely name?
John Wade.
Joanna Prentice I'll be.
It's their final film together, and also the last film to star Spencer Tracy. Just 2 weeks after shooting finishes, 67-year-old Spencer dies of heart failure. Katharine cannot bring herself to watch the film, but wins her second Oscar, 34 years after winning the first. After his death, Katharine diverts herself with work and is soon rewarded for it. A third Oscar comes along the following year in 1968. As usual, she doesn't accept it personally. She's scared she's going to lose.
What would you have me do? Give out, give up, give in?
Give me a little peace.
A little? Why so modest? How about eternal peace? Now there's a thought.
Although she's remembered as a star from the 30s and 40s, her greatest success really came in the 1960s in terms of recognition in the way of Oscar attention.
I will think of good days gone. Days to make a song of, crowning my sorrow by remembering we were kings and a king I married. Sons, I bore him many sons.
What's the second part?
Television is the new popular medium everyone is watching, and many big screen stars are suspicious. Even Katharine is skeptical at first. Dick Cavett is a talk show host who has interviewed some of the greatest stars in the world on his Dick Cavett Show. He's the first talk show host to get Katharine Hepburn in front of television cameras. Kate is 68 years old.
She's the only guest I ever had who came in a day or two before the show was to be taped to see what it would feel like, where she'd sit, where the audience was, how big the place was, and so on. And I was just dressed in a casual clothes and tennis shoes. And we sat there on the set, and suddenly she said, "Why don't we just do it now?" And I wasn't prepared. It was supposed to be 2 days later. But I thought, she's got a lot of guts, so why not? Let's do it.
Certain things have maintained themselves. My teeth are pretty good. I can still hear. I can see pretty well. And I still seem to have a wild amount of energy. It shakes the boat a bit once in a while, but I can still go on.
In the 1980s, the renowned Players Club, an exclusive club for actors in New York, decides to commission a limited edition print of a star, the sales of which would be used to sponsor the club's library. It would need to be a notable celebrity, and one name springs to everyone's mind: Kate Hepburn. Ray Kinsler is an artist who has painted portraits of many stars and politicians. His friend, Players Club member James Cagney, gives him Kate's telephone number.
6 months ago. I dialed the number. Hello, Miss Hepburn, this is Ray Kinsler. Oh, yes, Jim said you were going to call, and I will have nothing to do with I don't appear, I don't accept honors, and I have no time for this, whatever it is. She would ask a question, and before you could answer it, she was off this way. And I finally blurted out to her, I said, Miss Hepburn, if I could only meet with you sometime and explain this. And she said, well, how about now? I got up to her house. She was sitting on the couch against the window. She was not as large as I expected, but still the bones were there, the delicacy, the voice was there, the personality was surely there. And I heard some footsteps coming from behind, from the upper floor. And it was her niece, Katharine Houghton. And I said, well, actually what I'm doing with your aunt is she's going to pose for some paintings, which I'm going to turn into a lithograph, and we're going to sell these to raise money for the Players Club. And she said, looking at me, Miss Hepburn is behind me, she said, isn't that all-male actors club? I heard every eggshell crack. I thought, this is over. And from behind me, Miss Hepburn's voice said, Katharine, to her niece, we're doing this to save the library, and Spencer was a member. And I did, in the course of several years, many paintings of her. She was very, very, very difficult. I said, Miss Hepburn, look, I can't tell you, meanwhile her expression was like this, I can't tell you how much I admire you. I said, I've been very lucky in my career to have met some extraordinary people, but you're my favorite. You, as an actress and a performer and an artist, would appreciate what a fellow artist is trying to do, and I must tell you that you are driving me bananas. I can't work this way. This isn't right, that. I said, I was like this, I'm exasperated. And she looked at me like that, and she said, she was holding her cane, she said, you know what your problem is? You talk too much. Why don't you paint a little more and talk less? That was like her.
Even today, older stars are rarely cast in leading roles, but Katharine Hepburn manages to age with her characters. When Jane Fonda arrives with the script for On Golden Pond, Kate is more than thrilled. Jane has bought the film rights for herself and her father. Henry Fonda wins his only Oscar for the film and is the third leading man to win an Oscar on Katharine's side. Katharine is awarded her fourth and final Academy Award as Best Actress.
Miss Hepburn had, I don't know what the disease was that was crippling her, but it was a form of shaking of her head, and it became uncontrolled. She could feel it coming like a spasm. It was very disconcerting. And in the Golden Pond, I think there were vestiges of this beginning to happen. And at one point when Jane Fonda is complaining about Henry Fonda, her father in the movie, also her father in real life, Miss Hepburn drops her head on top of Jane Fonda's like this and says, bore, bore, bore. And I know she was getting a spasm attack right then. She was so intelligent about covering that up. She was so sensitive about it.
At the beginning of the 1990s, she moves out of her New York house to live in Old Saybrook for good. She retires to Fenwick. Phyllis Wilburn, her secretary for decades, remains at her side. Clinging to my roots, Katharine says, is what saved me from Hollywood. In the peace and quiet of the New England coast, she's still working on herself. And in 1991, she publishes her autobiography entitled, in typically straightforward Hepburn style, Me, Stories of My Life.
Now, I've maintained that machine as well as I could possibly maintain it. And I tried, deliberately this was, in the beginning, I said, don't get spoiled. Don't dress up. Don't get an expensive car. Don't get a lot of fancy habits that you can't maintain if you flop, because the contrast then you're going to have to carry.
The phone rang one morning, and this is verbatim, the conversation. Hello, this is Kate Hep. Oh, Miss Hepburn, how are you? Well, she said, I would like you to call me tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So the next morning, I dialed her number. Miss Hepburn, yes, who is this? I said, it's Ray Kinsler. What do you want? I said, well, Miss Hepburn, you asked me to call you this morning at 9 o'clock. It's exactly 9 o'clock. You said, about what? Oh, I said, Miss Hepburn, I don't have a clue. Well, she said, neither do I, and she hung up. It's the last time I talked to her.
Well, when Kate died, she was 96 years old. She was all used up. There was nothing left except this spark in her eye. She'd kind of look at you. But she was old, and it was time to go. And she went grudgingly, but she finally realized, well, I guess you got me beat on this one. It's time to go. And off she went.
Only a god would know what the true Katharine Hepburn was, and that's probably the way she liked it. I tend to feel that she discovered, tried out several, finally decided on a personality that she would play for the rest of her life. And it was such an entertaining one that I'm glad she settled on the one she did. I don't think anyone could say for sure, is there a more real Katharine Hepburn beneath all the Katharine Hepburn mannerisms, manners, gestures, voice, sense of humor, which was wonderful. If there's a real Katharine Hepburn below all that, I don't give a damn. What we had was very good.
I hate to say this, but we've come to the end of the time we have tonight.
You mean I'm finished? I can go?
Well, I hate
Thank you very much. I've had a lovely time. Bye-bye.
But can't you wait till I say goodnight?
No, you say good night. Good night.